Okay, today's video, we're going to talk about WPEngine and why that is basically, in every case, inferior to a Liquidweb VPS hosting for your WordPress website. A lot of people think WPEngine, because it's so popular, everybody's basically talking about it. It's got to be the best service out there for WordPress, and I'm telling you here on this video, it absolutely is not the best service for hosting your WordPress. Website if you want to make the most money. And obviously we're in business. That's the entire point of being in business. So with that said, there's no therefore reason to use WPEngine for the hosting of your website. And by the way, the reason why most people think WPEngine's the best, and because it, normally whatever seems most popular seems like it's got to be the best because there's assumed crowd consensus around something. It has to be the best thing. And if you think hard enough, there's plenty of cases where that's not the case in everyday society that you could think of. As it comes to this, and it applies to it as well, namely because WPEngine just has excellent, referral programs and all this other really good marketing. So in other words, they did an excellent job marketing to get their product out there. Well, obviously, usually the best companies in a niche that are the best at marketing generally don't have the best products as well. Not obviously every time, but we'll just say at least half of the time, I want to say the company that's the biggest one is because they have better marketing, not better products directly. And they use the money to get the marketing to sell versus putting it into the product. And obviously you have two courses of going about doing business. You can either be the best quality, you can have the best marketing. You kind of got to pick one or the other. WPEngine spend it all on marketing. Liquidweb spends it more on what you get, the infrastructure. And obviously, the more if you don't know, the better the web hosting you have, the faster your website's going to load. The faster your website loads, the more money you're going to make because that affects your conversion rates. That's what this particular video is about and is going to explain why. Because hosting on WPEngine slower in general, you're going to make less money from any paid ads you have, or any organic traffic that you're getting, or any other traffic that you're getting, and therefore why a Liquidweb VPS, even though people are going to, if you ask an IT person, if you should use any kind of VPS, let alone Liquidweb, which is what we use for our website on Guaranteed PPC because it's the best one we could possibly find and know about, they're going to tell you, oh no, you don't need a VPS for your website. Oh, that's too much. And really that's, too much bullshit, basically. You get what you pay for in life, and this is really no different. When you're paying for web space or space on a web server or paying for web hosting, you're paying for a place on a computer somewhere to host your website. The more you pay, not obviously always, but in general, the more you pay, the more space you're going to get, but also in terms of the real problem, which is the bottlenecking of the traffic that accesses the device at that place that has the web hosting, as well as the type of hard drive that you get where your website's hosted on, whether it's a solid state hard drive or non-solid state hard drive, whether you have a lot of dedicated memory that you get or not, all plays into the load speed of your website, because obviously the internet, that's kind of how it works. Your web browser has to go find the web files on the web hosting account to get the website, fetch it, and get it on your web browser. And the faster that happens, the more likely you aren't to leave the page. But as you're going to fetch those files, when it gets to the quality of the computer that it's on dictates how fast you're going to be able to access those files. That's really the nuts and bolts of this. If you spend enough money and you go with a company that don't spend all your money on marketing, you're going to get a better load speed on your website. So with all that said, I'm going to go through an example of how much you're going to be able to make or lose, if you want to say that, in terms of using WPEngine for your WordPress website. And really cement in what I'm talking about here. Well, you'll make literally 2 times more money just simply by making the one decision by going with the Liquidweb VPS versus a WPEngine. I'll get into the content, but before I do not get paid by Liquidweb VPS at all. I'm not going to, in the future, take money from them. And WPEngine, this is just an unpaid study. We run a PPC agency here. What I do on this channel is just tell you the stuff that is making our clients money that we experiment with to get awareness of our agency. That's all we're doing here. So that said, we'll get into the content. Most people who use WPEngine think because their service is dedicated to host just WordPress, which is why the guy who started WPEngine is a genius, because with 40% of websites out there being WordPress, if you could come out with a web hosting that seems perfect for WordPress, naturally, that one just seems like it would be the best, right? Ultimately, because people want to buy niche-y things. They want to buy specialized things. And when people don't know anything about computer and web hosting, naturally, they don't know about solid-state hard drives and all this other shit that I mentioned a minute ago. All they know is what the price is, and they a lot of times don't know what a VPS is versus not having a VPS. All they know is, okay, this one's supposed to be just for WordPress. I have a WordPress site, therefore this has to be the best, particularly if I look online and there's good reviews, which, by the way, they have an affiliate program, and you're going to get a bunch of people that's going to promote your shit to get affiliate commissions and people to click through your links. So that's completely pointless. So anyway, with that said, they think that this is the best for the WordPress site because they're just a little bit ignorant. I can't blame them. They didn't go to school for computer networking and information systems like I did. They're not in web marketing. They don't understand this web shit. But now that you've watched this video, you know better. WordPress, basically WPEngine might have some specific things that they do to make WordPress hosting a little bit better. At the end of the day, the practical matter is, ultimately the bottom line here is, it doesn't load the page as quick as what's tangibly possible. Potentially, if all the little hacks they have for hosting WordPress, which I can't necessarily even understand how having everything dedicated to hosting WordPress is going to be any different than a regular hosting account, how they're going to make it, because they have special coding, how they're going to make it load faster. But the reality is they don't have any hardware to back up what their coding, specialized coding that is supposed to be there, or that they say they have to make WordPress sites load faster. And the hardware aspect of the hardware level of what you're getting with the hosting service is more important than the software side that they're using to try to make more of, make more with less, basically, so to say. So thinking WordPress, your hosting, the hosting that you need for your WordPress site has, WPEngine being the only best one out, the obvious best one out there for hosting WordPress sites and hosting your WordPress site is completely, basically, flat out wrong. Okay? Now, WPEngine, okay, is $20 a month if you're not talking about the e-commerce package that's supposed to be good for WooCommerce, which, as a side note, I don't recommend anybody doing WooCommerce anymore. Just do Shopify. Why? Because WooCommerce, as well as open source shopping carts, which can be good if you know what you're doing. Most business owners aren't programmers. They're not web experts. So, and with that, managing your website takes a programmer. And so ultimately, you got to have basically almost an internal person to manage your e-commerce website then, to do it right and to maintain it and make sure it's got all the security patches that it needs and so forth. You're just better off using Shopify because Shopify is like an e-commerce business on training wheels. You're just better off paying a little bit extra for that, and then you don't need that tech guy to manage your website, which that tech guy is going to be more than the Shopify fee because Shopify understands how to maintain their website because they can do it on scale. So back to the topic at hand here, though, Liquidweb used to be a lot more expensive. And when I would tell my clients, hey, what I'm telling you here today, hey, Liquidweb VPSs are going to load your website faster. You're going to make way more money. That's the one that you want to go with. The extra $60 a month isn't going to be dog shit, or it amount to shit in reference or compared to what you're going to lose in terms of the slower load speed of your page, going with a WPEngine that's spending all your money on marketing to make, to get all their customers. But this has changed recently. which is why I was excited to make this video. Liquidweb VPS, if you pay for a full 24 months in advance, it's only $25 a month now. Whereas at the beginning, when I first started using it, it was minimum of $60 a month. And actually, if you pay monthly, that's actually what it still is. But, you know, it's 24 months in advance, you know, basically, which is only, you're paying like $600 in one shot. So it's like nothing anyway. And ultimately, if you have a business that you know that it's gonna last for 2 years, why not pay that $600 anyway? Well, at the very least, even if it was $60 a month, it's still worth it. It was always worth it. Now there's even more reason why you wouldn't want to go with WPEngine, even if, you know, you were somewhat trying to make, or, you know, you were letting emotions influence your opinion on whether you do it or not. You got, you know, in terms of just $60 a month, $20 a month, and then not, you know, getting emotional about the decision, in other words. So anyway, that's the case with the pricing. And now, what do you get for that price? Basically, it's the same price if you 24 months in advance. Liquidweb will actually load now at 50% faster than WPEngine will. And we know this is because we've tested this multiple times now. We'll have clients who, okay, Corey, what else can we do to get, you know, make more money from our business? Because, you know, we're a PPC agency here, but I've got 15 years of web marketing experience. And I'm not like, you know, a lot of these so-called marketing experts that help you market your websites. I've ran actual businesses and marketed my own websites from start to finish and was successful at it. I'm not just a guy who's only helped clients with their marketing, which that in itself should be a red flag, because if you're a great marketer, you should be able to at least at some point on the side figure out how to have a venture where you're managing the website and getting your own customers, because you'll make more money that way. Or you're charging so much money for your clients and the services in terms of what you're offering to your clients that the side business doesn't even make sense, because you're charging $5,000 a month to clients just advising them, and then it kind of, you know, you can make more money than starting your own business on the side. Anyway, as I keep getting off topic here, with all that said, you know, we'll ultimately see. Then, the client wants to make more money. We'll suggest, you know, right away suggest use Liquid VPS. You'll right away get a faster load speed. You'll right away get a higher conversion rate. Here's a chart that shows, and you could look this up online, how load speed directly correlates with conversion rate from the traffic that you have already come into your site. And the faster it is that your page loads for the user on average, the higher the conversion rate's going to be for the most part. There's a point where if it loads any faster, you're not going to actually get any more. So I'll throw that caveat in there, which is basically like a second and a half and shorter. You kind of basically don't get any more gain, because the typical person isn't going to be like, you know, it's been a half a second. Oh, my page isn't loading. Fuck this. I'm out of here. No. But when they get to 2 seconds, now it's been enough time where at least some of the people are bouncing already. So, which is why, basically the faster the page loads, the higher the conversion rate, because there's a higher and higher percentage on an ongoing basis that aren't willing to stay for that whole time waiting for the page to load. And people have different thresholds. Some people will wait 2 seconds, some people will wait 3 seconds, some people will wait 4 seconds. And a lot more people will wait 2 seconds than 3, but then, there'll be more people that will wait 3 seconds but won't wait 4 seconds, and so forth. So it's just up to you based upon, to get whatever, the amount of it's up to you to get the maximum amount of customers you can by being a good steward of managing your website, and that is having proper hosting that's going to maximize the user's experience by having the page load as quickly as possible. So with that said, we'll have a client is on WPEngine, and then we'll switch over to Liquidweb, and then we'll see how much faster the page loads. The first thing we'll do is we'll measure their site speed at pingdom.com, which I recommend that site for testing how fast your website or landing pages loads right now, because they let you do it from different geographies, and it just seems the most reliable. But because ultimately the load speed of your website will differ based upon where you're geographically, as corresponding to where your website's physically hosted. If your website's hosted in Seattle and you're in Miami, it might take 3 seconds to download your website versus if you were in St. Louis, it might take 2.5 seconds. And if you're also right there in Seattle, it might take 2 seconds. It might take so in other words, it can often generally, as a general rule of thumb, even just to say, it'll take an extra second to get from one side of the country to the other in terms of fetching the files off of a web server and getting them to your computer. Because it takes time for electricity to flow through a wire. And, speed of light is fast, but still there's a delay there. And then same thing if you're going to go international. It can take an extra 3 seconds to get over the Pacific Ocean and so forth. So ultimately, we see the difference. And the difference typically for a WPEngine versus a Liquidweb VPS server will be somewhere around, if we average it out, about 3 seconds average load speed with WPEngine and an average of about 1.9 load time, 1.9 average time to load using a Liquidweb VPS hosted WordPress website. So considerably faster. It's actually 37% faster if you do the math there, which that's a very, very significant number as it comes to conversion rates and how much money you can make from any paid traffic that you drive to your WordPress website when you add it all up. And I'll explain why here. So naturally with Pingdom, you can go ahead and just look at your site now. If you're not loading at 1.9 seconds already, you should already know that if you just upgrade to Liquidweb VPS, that you're going to be able to get a ton more sales by doing nothing else besides upgrading your hosting, literally speaking. And there'll be an instantaneous increase in sales by having the direct increase in conversion rates you're going to get by the page loading faster and therefore having less people abandon your site before the page fully loads for them, for some of the people. But there's an indirect way that you're going to make more money, which is you're going to have the ability to scale marketing campaigns more than you would otherwise, having that higher conversion rate. And specifically, what I mean by that is, ultimately, everything about PPC, and I talk about PPC exclusively on this channel, everything is about getting a PPC campaign to be profitable. Once it's profitable on a small budget, you can scale your ad campaign, and you might spend 3 to 6 months with a $1,000 a month ad budget on Google or Facebook to get to where your campaign generates the minimum starting numbers that it needs to generate to cover all your costs and still break even or then some. And then, but what you're okay with that, because in 6 months, if you spent $6,000 in ad spend to get to the point where your campaign now breaks even, what you're going to make year 5 after you've scaled this campaign up, you're going to make that 6 months starting ad spend to kick off your campaign back in a week. It's all relative, and that's actually how you got to think about what you're doing if you're going to be successful with PPC. The people that turn on their ads and 30 days later they're unhappy that they don't have results are the losers in this game. The people that win are the people that say, I'm going to get this to work like my life depends on it. I know it can sell, so I'm going to just be patient, and as long as my results are improving, even if it's a little bit per month, I know eventually my campaign's going to be profitable, and then I can scale, and then when I scale, I'm making millions off of this. And that's for the people that go on to make millions at our agency. That's the way they're thinking versus the other side where the people want it right now. They just want it right now, and they're going to get it right now. They don't want it. And that's 90% of the people that try PPC. Not our clients per se, but that's 90% of people who try PPC. They never make any money because they have the mindset that this is like a light switch. They're going to turn on their ads, sales start coming in, and their ROI is going to be great, and the ROI is going to be just as good as if they would have ran their ads 3 years already. And it's a complete opposite of that. The sales come in slowly because there's an ad serving algorithm that's based upon machine learning. And it seems like when I explain this to some people, our potential clients, sometimes it's funny because it's like their eyes glaze over. You got to understand how algorithms work and machine learning works to understand truly how PPC works and how to make money off of PPC. When you set up your tracking with your PPC campaigns, first of all, you should know what your numbers you need to you got to have up front. You got to know if I get $8 in sales for every dollar in ad spend, I know I'm profitable because after my expenses, my margins and everything, that's the point where it starts to be profitable. You know that going in. Then you come up with an ad budget you can afford to lose up front, and then just keep optimizing that ad budget until it works, basically, or whatever money you can afford to lose indefinitely while you get this campaign running. You set up your conversion tracking to know if you got your 8-to-1 return, and you let the baby run. You try to optimize it on your side, but the bigger thing that's going to get you from where you're going to start out, which might be $0.5 in sales for every dollar in ad spend you spend, to $8 in sales for every dollar in ad spend you spend, is the machine learning process that goes on, behind the scenes with Facebook ads, Google ads, LinkedIn ads, whatever you're basically running online, on social media or on Google, that takes a customer. When you first get a customer, Google or Facebook or whatever looks at that customer and all the millions of data points they got stored up on that person in a server somewhere. Are they male or are they female? Do they like chicken? Do they not like chicken? They have literally so much information on every user stored away. They track everything you've done since the beginning of time, at least as far as beginning of time is in terms of their company. So Google knows everything about you since 2003. They've stored it on their servers. Everything you've searched, every website you went to that had Google Analytics on it, every website that you went to if you use Google Chrome is all stored into a database somewhere, and they've built a profile on you. So anyway, when you get a customer through your campaigns, they can look at all that data of that person, and then they can kind of see, okay, I kind of understand this. Ultimately, yes, I know you're advertising for the keyword red shoes, but clearly, the people that are buying, it looks like, are people that are male, like chicken, da, 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 da. And so what we should do, instead of just showing your ad all the time if someone searches for red shoes, what you're bidding on, we'll just show it if they have all these other traits. Otherwise, we won't show it. And because they have that little bit of information, next sale you get will come in at a cheaper price because they've limited how many times your ad will show to the people that are more statistically likely to convert. And then through trial and error again and again and again and again and again and again, you eventually get the return you want. That's machine learning in a nutshell. It's the same kind of thing as saying, how Google's system works with their search results. And when you type in something and it's misspelled, they say, do you mean? Well, that's all trial and error. They've tried to say something, recommend something to you, and if it didn't work, the next person may not get shown that. But if you did say it helped, then the next person could be shown it. And it's a self-perpetuating feedback loop. That is, if you have the conversion tracking set up right, like you should before you start. But if you do, one sale turns into 2, and turns into 3, and turns into 4, and pretty soon you're making a lot of money with PPC. Now, ROI slowly gets better. You might only get an improvement in the ROI of your campaign 25% a month or 50% a month, but that'll compound. And if you chart it out, if I get a 25% improvement in my ROI a month, in 8 months my campaign will be profitable. And then 8 months after that, after I scale it some more, I'm making an additional 10 grand a month in profit. So this ridiculous $1,000 a month that I'm spending up front to get this profitable for the first 8 months is literally nothing. So as it comes to all that, how the machine learning systems that Google has, that Facebook has, that get you the sales and the level of ROI that you want, still at the end of the day, it's still a bidding system. You're competing with all the other people in your market for the ad space that you want to get in front of the people that you want. Ultimately, if you bid higher or are willing to pay more for that ad placement than other people, you're more likely to get in front of that customer you want to get in front of that's worth a lot to you than if you were to bid a lower amount. So ultimately, if your conversion rate is less now, tying this all together, you ultimately can't spend as much for the same placements you had before. So if you were on Liquidweb, in other words, and then you switched to WPEngine, and now you've got a 37% lower conversion rate, now you can't spend what you were spending to get in front of the same people you were before, because if you do, you aren't profitable, let's say. So then you've got to lower what you're willing to pay. Well, now you're going to get shown way less. It's not going to be a direct correlation. Just because you spend 37% less per click, because you convert 37% less than you did before because of the slower page speed loading, you're actually going to basically, ultimately, get shown way less less than 37% basically, because it's not, those two aren't going to be correlated. I'll give you an example of this basically. So ultimately, you know, on average, you can go from a 1.9, or you can go from a 3.0 second average page load speed using WPEngine. You switch to Liquidweb VPS and get a 1.9 average page load speed, which is a 37% decrease in your conversion rate. So that part's, if you follow me so far here, going into an example here, which is a very, you know, relevant example, we'll just say, of what you can expect. If you had a $100 ad budget a day or a month, whatever you want to say. If you had a $100 a day ad budget, and then from that you were getting $800 in sales revenue average per day, and that was profitable to you. You knew that you needed to have an 8-to-1 ratio, which they call it in the marketing space ROAS of 8, or an 8 ROAS, $8 in sales revenue for every dollar in ad spend to be profitable, because you know you factor in the cost of your product or service delivery cost and your overhead. You actually need that $8 in sales revenue for every dollar in ad spend, because if you don't, all your costs won't be covered and there's no profit left over at the end of the day. So, you know, 8-to-1 is the minimum threshold, in other words, of ratio of sales revenue to ad spend cost to actually make something from the sales that you're getting. So if you had that 8-to-1 ROI requirement that you need to have, which again, you need to know that number going into running your ads if you're going to be successful, so you know what you're exactly gunning for. Because usually it's everything you're doing comes down to slim margins and, you know, slim percentages. And if you don't know your numbers exactly and just trying to go by gut feeling and how is my bank account going up, you're not going to notice it and you're not going to see it, and you probably are going to shut the campaign down early because you don't necessarily understand even that it's making money, given it's just barely making money, but all you need is just barely, because over time that compounds. Anyway, if you needed an 8-to-1 ratio of sales to revenue, and that's what you were currently getting with your ad account, and you were getting a 3% conversion rate, and then you switched from WPEngine to, the other way around. You switched from Liquidweb to WPEngine, and you got, instead of a 3% conversion rate, your conversion rate got dropped by 37%. You got a 1.89% conversion rate. Instead of making $800 a day in sales off of a $100 a day ad budget, you're now making $536 in sales revenue for $100 in ad budget, which is obviously a significant drop, just that one thing, which is basically costing you almost the same amount of money, or even if you were paying for it on a monthly basis, you were paying an extra $45 a month to get, you know, $230 in sales less per day. But like I was trying to convey before, the immediate drop in sales is not even the biggest thing, actually. Yes, you'll get, instead of $800 a day in sales that you had before, you're getting $536 a day in sales off of the same exact $100 a day ad budget. Because you are now at $536 a day in sales off of a $100 a day budget, and you still need, going back to this, your 8-to-1 ratio of sales revenue to ad spend, otherwise you're not going to be profitable. You know, getting $5 in sales for every dollar in ad spend, you're still losing money after all your expenses. So if that's the case, then you're going to have to probably lower your cost per click by 37%, which is to make up for the reduction in cost, or excuse me, make up for the reduction in conversion rate you're getting, because your page load speed is now 37% slower than what it was. And so by cutting your bids by basically 37%, you're not just going to get shown 37% less. That it'd be nice to think that it's going to be that 37% is going to be magnified, because by spending 7% less, actually what happens is with the competitive market, you're going to be less competitive as overall. It's not a direct correlation to where if you raise your, bids by 10%, you get 10% more traffic. You might raise your bids by 10% and you might get 7% traffic. That's why it's always harder to scale. If it was easy to scale just by raising your bids, everybody would be able to do it. You have to figure out how to consistently be more efficient while you scale your ad spend, because it's harder and harder and harder to get the same level of conversion rate for the same ad money, or say per dollar of ad spend than it was before. But that goes the other way. If you're willing to pay less per click, and you need to be able to hit your level of ROI and your ROI goal with your campaign, we actually will be shown considerably less. To the point where just going from a 3% conversion rate to a 1.89% conversion rate, which is a 37% drop, you're actually going to be seeing 50 to 100% less sales, because your ad impressions, or number of times your ad shows up, and then as a result of that, the number of clicks you're going to get on your ads is going to go down more than 37%. It's going to go down 50 to 100%, and probably closer to the 100% side. So ultimately, you kind of get what I'm saying. Ultimately, if basically you are going to slow down your page load speed from even just 1.9 to 3 seconds, which may seem insignificant to you, this can make all the world of difference on your PPC campaign in practicality, or in practice, because of the competitiveness of your market. Because there's a certain threshold, you may have to pay $1 a click to get clicks in your market. In a lot of markets, if you have to lower that down to 50 cents per click, you'll just stop getting clicks altogether. There'll be a drop-off point where you get like no clicks at all anymore. So you might be able to get away with lowering your cost per click 10 or 20%, but the lower you go, the higher the chance that you're going to lower your cost per click so much that you get no clicks anymore at all. And so having to lower your cost per click by 37% to compensate for a reduction in conversion rate that you're going to get switching hosting to WPEngine from Liquidweb VPS, which would be your best hosting, you may actually just completely take the entire campaign. Maybe not, but at the very least, you're going to lose 37% of your money, right? That's a given. And then probably 99% for sure you're going to lose more in addition to that 37% initial immediate drop you're going to get in terms of drop in sales from having a lower conversion rate. So naturally, on the flip side, if you're using WPEngine now and you switch to Liquidweb VPS, you can get basically a 37% increase on the flip side in conversion rate, and could make it in a campaign you're already running that's making $800 a day. Could certainly be making $1,100 a day or somewhere close to that. That's just a rough estimate number, a round number there, but you get the general idea. And then on the flip side, going the other way, if you got to the point where you got that much more conversion rate, and the way you would actually make more money in that situation wouldn't be to try to just take your $1,100 in sales on your $100 of ad spend. No, you would raise your bids so that you can get more clicks than you had before. So in other words, you'll make more profit on a campaign on your clicks. You might be able to raise your ad spend 50% or 100%, which will obviously, as you know, increase the profitability of your campaign by 50 to 100%. Not 37%, because now you can spend a lot more in terms of per click, which puts you in position to get a ton more clicks that you couldn't get before. And generally speaking, by paying 30% more or 37% more per click, that could put you in a position where you were kind of only getting 50% of the clicks, but now you can afford to get like 95% of the clicks. There's weird thresholds there where sometimes if you're willing to pay 20-30% more, you can get a ton more traffic. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but there's a good chance of it anyway. At the very least, you're going to be able to get that 37% increase in conversion rate, and then very likely you're going to be able to double your profit from your campaign, because it's going to compound with the ability to afford way more clicks than you could afford before, while still maintaining the level of ROI that you needed on your campaign. So Liquidweb VPS is what you want. Now, just in summary here, Liquidweb VPS stands for Virtual Private Server. So there's there's technically three main categories of web hosting. There's shared web hosting, there's something in the middle called a VPS, virtual private server, and then there's actually dedicated server. And there's technically managed and unmanaged, like VPS and all this stuff. Liquidweb VPS is a managed VPS, which means if there's any problem with your so-called web server, they handle all the customer service and everything. So you don't have to be having an IT person to manage it. But basically the idea with the VPS is, instead of having a shared computer where you and like 50 other businesses are all on the same hard drive, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Your website is broken down into, it's a set of files that the user who downloads your website has to get, and then it has to fetch it from this hard drive. And it could just be one hard drive itself that they basically lease out to a bunch of websites that, and then because you guys are all on the same hard drive, they can charge like $5 a month or whatever if they want to. Whereas the VPS, you're getting your own hard drive. And the reason why this is relevant is because when there's other people that are on that same hard drive as you, if they start getting all of a sudden a bunch of traffic to their website, which is going to tax the how many people, and actually it would be multiple hard drives potentially, but it would tax the resources of the device that your web files are on. Whereas if you have your own device, there's none of that. There's no sharing of the resources of the device with other businesses. It's your dedicated resources. So there's no having, basically a share with anybody else. It's a good second analogy for this would technically be like an internet connection. You could get an internet connection from the internet service provider, which is a shared internet connection, or you could get a direct line directly to your business, which is guaranteed with 99% guaranteed uptime, because nobody else is using that line. And if otherwise, if it's just on a shared connection and sharing it with other people, the other people are trying to use it a lot at any given time. It can really slow down your access of that line. Versus your dedicated line, you don't ever have to worry about that. So ultimately, this VPS, you're getting your own web server to host your website. But it's not really a whole dedicated server in that it's like a server. So they call it virtual private server. It's actually like your own resource, even though it's divvied up virtually. So like you'll basically get one part of a server that could be just on a separate hard drive, whereas that same server has many hard drives. And technically you're not getting your own dedicated server, but you're getting your own dedicated resources on a server. Whereas on a shared hosting, you're actually literally sharing the resources with other companies itself completely. So there's a dedicated server where you get your own server, like literally your own device that's dedicated for you, that you get your own dedicated computer, processor on the computer, dedicated, all the components in that server is dedicated to you, or you get, part of a server that's dedicated to you, or you just get on a server and the resources dedicated to you are also allocated to a bunch of other people, essentially. That's like your three things that you can get as far as web hosting. A VPS for most businesses is the best solution because the dedicated server is not only going to cost a lot of money, generally speaking, but for the most part it is overkill. You don't need that unless you have a high traffic website where you're getting like tens of thousands of visits a month, or even hundreds of thousands of visits a month plus, really, to even warrant that. And it's going to take somebody smart to help you manage it, even though some places offer dedicated support for the dedicated servers. You just basically don't need it. But the VPS, however, gives you basically most of the benefits of having your own server without the high price. So, and obviously with that, you don't have to share resources with everybody else that is on your web hosting, hard drive and so forth. So your stuff is guaranteed to be able to just, load faster than having a shared hosting account. So the VPS, the only problem with it, and the reason why everybody doesn't have it is because it's more money. It's $60 to $100 a month versus $5 a month for shared hosting. But obviously, as you know, the only reason why they can afford to give you $5 a month for shared hosting is because they're ramming 50 guys on one little part of the web server, and you're sharing all the resources with all the rest of them, and they just have to give you less load speed, and with that, and because you have less server resources to serve up your website to people, that's just what you get. So that, practically speaking, lesson being with all of this is there's no sense in trying to save $50 to $100 a month when your conversion rates are literally going to go down 37% by just going from a shared hosting experience to a VPS hosted experience, so to say. And going from VPS to dedicated server, that's not even going to be required until you have shitloads of traffic. And then at that point, you probably already know it already. But for most of you guys, most small business owners, even if you're doing $100K a year in sales, you want the VPS. Yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, but there's no point where that extra cost doesn't pay for itself if you're going to have any kind of paid traffic going to your site at all, or even if you have organic traffic, to just be able to extract the full amount of value from that. Let alone, Google organic rankings are influenced on conversion rate of your site. So if your page loads slower, automatically you're going to rank less, or to some degree, because the average experience isn't going to be as good as somebody else that has a VPS if they're competing against you. So with all that said, Liquid VPS is a good bet. There's other VPS web hosting providers out there, but Liquidweb is the best one that I found, and so therefore, if you want to just keep it simple, use that one. Yes, they're going to be more expensive, but the load speeds are excellent, and that's what really matters when you're trying to figure out which one to use for your business. So with that said, if you have any questions, let me know. You can leave me a comment. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. You can ask any question about PPC or this as well. If you liked the video, I'd like if you give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel, as I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other money-making strategies as it comes to Google ads, Facebook ads, and so forth. And I guarantee you, if you watch these videos and apply it to your business, you will make quite a bit of money, respectively, because this is the stuff that I get from managing several dozen PPC accounts for clients at any given time that work, and give them to you on a silver platter here on this channel. I also, by the way, have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog, where you can find step-by-step advice on how to do PPC strategies that I use to guarantee our clients' results at our firm at Guarantee PPC. So if you like basically the channel here and get value from the channel, you can also find more detailed stuff from me there as well. So if you like the channel here, you'll like the blog. As a final note, I want to share that we have a brand new program where we're offering turnkey PPC campaign setups, in that if we've gotten great results in one market already, if you're competing in a different geography, or basically in a different city or a different country as our client or past client, if you want to be able to use the results that we got for that client in your market, we can give you basically the templates that work for that market type of thing. We type of keywords, landing pages, all of it, and use it for your market, so to say. And in that, we'll be able to just reface it, but you'll know the results you can get in your market using the results we got in another geographic part of the country or different city, just because we've already spent years optimizing our client's campaign in that market already. So just within a few months of executing it on your account, you'd get those same results there. And it's just a shortcut to success, ultimately. And we've got, the reason why we started mentioning this on this channel is because we've had certain people that we have as clients or potential clients, and we say, instead of doing what you're doing, why don't you just start a plumbing business? We've got a plumbing campaign that makes this guy over here $1 million a year. You take his campaign templates, all the ads, landing page stuff that works. We'll give you a version of it for your own local market that doesn't compete with him, because you're in two different parts of the country. You can outsource all the work to another provider in your area, mark up the cost 10 or 20%, keep that as your cut, and you've got a profitable, mostly passive income business. We have hundreds of markets where we've gotten results like this. So if you're interested in what markets and what businesses you could start, or if we even got results in your market, let us know. We'll let you know what kind of results we can get in that market, because we've gotten results in that market already, and what we would charge for basically the campaigns and everything to get results in that market. So it's a different way of offering services to our clients that doesn't involve full management of your PPC campaigns long term, which some people don't want. They just want a turnkey campaign that basically already works for their market. With that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on my next video where we have another great strategy for you there. See you then.